You're joining the Dr. Business Podcast with Dr. Hollen Meyer, where we talk business sprinkled with a bit of Jesus. Our goal is to help you simplify business, impact more lives, and increase your profitability. By sharing the stories of influential doctors from various specialties, we help you get creative in connecting with your target market, increasing your exposure in the community, and collaborating with local providers so you can reach more people and avoid burnout. Thanks for tuning in, and we're excited to help you navigate success in your doctor business. And now your host, Dr. Hollen Meyer.
All right, let's rock and roll, and thanks for joining us for another podcast. I'm excited to introduce Dr. Rieder with us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, he's the founder of DC Practice Growth and the new Patient Avalanche System. He owns and operates 8 offices with over 100 team members that serve thousands of clients every single week. And his marketing strategies have brought over 10,000 new patients for his offices and $7 million worth of revenue. He now helps chiropractors all over the world grow their practice with his tried and true tested strategies. And his chiropractic marketing book is a #1 bestseller on Amazon, and he's sold thousands of copies worldwide, growing practices across the globe. So now that's just a snapshot of who Dr. Rieder is, and now you know why I'm so excited to bring him on this podcast to really discuss what's going on in this time frame. But before we jump into the hysteria of today's world, Dr. Rieder, give us a glimpse of what practice was like for you when you very first got started, and then fast forward to today and how you have such a monopoly on healthcare.
Cool. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. It is exciting to be here today, especially with everything that's happening. And I'll go right back to the beginning. Let me first start by saying that I'm one of 5 first-generational chiropractors. So I'm a chiropractor, my wife's a chiropractor, my brother's a chiropractor, his wife's a chiropractor, and one of my sister-in-laws is a chiropractor. My other sister-in-law runs 4 of my offices, and at one point my mother-in-law did my accounts. So
that's a whole nother level of a family business.
Listen, let me just say that our dinner time conversation is not all that exciting for a lot of people. So that's where I started. I was heavily involved in sport at school. I did really just wanted to be with people. I always said I never wanted to be sat behind a desk, and that drove me towards chiropractic. I didn't grow up in a household where I was adjusted from birth or anything like that. You know, I always say that chiropractic found me. I didn't find chiropractic, and I was so blessed. You know, such a blessed. Even in this tumultuous time, I even say to my inner circle group is, you know, we've got these 2 things, and at the end of the day, you know, we can get operational anywhere just about within 48 hours. So we're very blessed. Let me start by saying that I started my chiropractic journey as an associate. And I did that for about 2 years, and I was very blessed to be very, very busy and seeing high volume within a short space of time. And I say blessed because it gave me a perspective of 2 things. One was I became abundant, which was great, but the other one was although I loved being busy, I never forget going to a seminar while I was a very busy associate, and it said that the definition of a business is a profit-making enterprise that works without you. And there was a moment in my life where I was like, wow, I'm not sure I had that.
Wow. Yeah. Especially as an associate.
So I was like, that definition always stuck. Profit-making enterprise that works without me. And from there, we decided, a very conscious decision, to go along the path of opening up multiple practices. And we have associates in that. And probably running directly or indirectly running practices for the last 10 years. And we see anywhere from 3,000 to 3,500 visits every week, and generate millions of dollars of revenue every year and help a lot of people. But the lessons I've learned along the way, made tons and tons of mistakes. But that's the blessing of business. I say business is the greatest personal development program of all time.
That is 100% true. So speaking of that, what would you say has been one of your most successful failures in business?
One comes to mind straight away is if you so we rent our or lease our properties that we open new offices in, and I never forget. I always say to everyone here in the United Kingdom, where we are based, is there's a sentence in a contract you should never have, and I'll say it out loud so someone has it. But I signed a lease for a building, and the sentence was best endeavors. So how it works here is if you sign a lease, it's subject to you getting planning permission for what you're doing, in our case, chiropractic practice. And if you get it, you go ahead with the lease and you pay a deposit in the meantime. If you don't get it, they're supposed to give you a deposit back.
Okay.
But the word best endeavors is how long's a piece of string. So when we weren't given the planning permission, we went to them and said, I'm so sorry, we'd love to have taken it. And they said, well, unfortunately, we're not going to give you your deposit back, which was £37,000. So probably $45,000, something like that.
Yeah.
And that's an education for you. So people say, I think who said this? Jim Rohn said this. You think education is expensive, try ignorance. And that was I always say that's my price, my notch on my belt everywhere anyway, to earn the right to be able to teach. So that's just one of my mistakes where we lost like $45,000 and was really no fault of ours. But I learned a lot from it.
Right. But through the learning phase and the learning stages, like every mistake and every dollar, much less thousands and tens of thousands, is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, that's part of our education as teachers, is that's our tuition a lot of the time. So,
well, that's true. All right. So let's bring it back to today's world. Okay. Yes. With the coronavirus going on and businesses being forced to shut down.
Yeah.
What are you telling your clinics and then the chiropractors that you mentor as well? What are you telling them so that we can survive, but even more than that, have the mentality to actually thrive and hit the ground running when things ramp back up?
Yeah, I mean, this is just such a great podcast to be listening to right now in these times. There's a book, and I'm going to get the author's name wrong, so I'll just leave his name out of it, but it's called The Crash Course. And it's a book about surviving crises and crashes and things like that. And he said, the number one asset you have in a crisis is your community. So I know you have a group of people you work with, etc. But the number one single biggest asset you have in this moment is your community, and being close to a community that's going to support you. That's the first thing I say. One of my greatest mentors, Rich Dad Advisor, always says, it's not about the content, it's about the context.
Okay.
And environment is stronger than willpower right now. Every time, but environment is stronger than willpower. So to be in a supportive environment is, first of all, the most important thing you can be doing. Based on that, my advice for business owners, or doesn't have to be practice owners, but any business owner, is number one is your job is to lead your team now. Mm-hmm. So first of all, as a leader, you need to create a safe environment in a particularly unsafe context.
Right. Yeah.
Your job is to now create an environment where you are leading that team and creating a safe environment in very unsafe times, very turbulent times, very unsure times. So first of all, pull your team together and have some meetings. Pull your team together and lead. You don't have to have all the answers. You certainly don't have to have all the answers, because basically we're responding each day to something that's coming out, and there's no ways to have all the answers. So first of all, lead your team, and next, be vulnerable, because you're not supposed to have all the answers. It's not supposed to be easy. You're not supposed to, not be worried about revenue, not be worried about paying rent. It's normal. So the quicker you can do that, the quicker you said something very important. Hollen, you said, how are we going to come out of this? And I truly believe that how we're going to come out of this stronger is if you are able to keep your team. Maintain your team. Make sure they understand that they're the most important thing right now, so that when you come out of this, don't forget you've got trained assets, you've got trained skill sets. I know when I'm coming out of a crisis, I want my team with me. So they need to feel that, they need to know that, and those are I'll get into specific marketing strategies in a moment, but that's where I'd start, is understanding that do everything you can to keep your context, your team, but create a safe environment for them first and foremost, And I'll give you context there. I have over 100 people relying on me for some type of wage, if you will, to pay their bills and put the roof over their head. And they're going to be concerned and scared right now. It's your job, our job as leaders, to step up and, and have their back.
Absolutely, 100%. So how do you suggest that we step up as leaders, and how are we going to be connecting with our target market in this time frame, which might look different than, say, 2 weeks ago, because our pain points are so different?
Yeah, I think two things that came up there. One is, I was once taught that how we're going to be leaders is that a coach without a coach is not a coach.
Okay, say that again. Say that again so folks can hear it.
So some people are like, to be a leader, do I need to step up and just be this all-seeing, all-knowing guru? No, you need to lean heavily on your support group too. Yeah. So a coach, I was once taught that a coach without a coach is not a coach, And I think it's important for us all to understand that the best of the best are leaning on their coaches, whether it's emotional support, whether it's coaches. So first of all, I know that I've doubled down on for my coaches. There's one of my coaches I work with, and her name's Jane Johnson. She does emotional work and like clearing and things, and she has done a lot of work with Robert and etc. I'm seeing her. I'm sure I'm going to call her every single week, because I need to make sure that this vessel is as high peak as I can be to lead. Right. And like we're praying every morning as a family, and just whatever we can do to make sure that because we also going to have weak moments and etc. So that's the first thing. Is make sure you lean on somebody to be the best leader you can. And then there's a saying that I often teach my inner circle group, is that the problem is never the problem. What we think the problem is never the problem. Meaning right now, people might be freaking out about revenue and et cetera. But it's really just showing up another gap in your skill set, for instance. It's not, like, for instance, if you ask, I feel like I've been preparing for this for the last 10 years, and obviously I didn't want this to happen, but, we regularly do email campaigns. We regularly do text marketing. We regularly do Facebook campaigns. We regularly do remarketing. We regularly do all the things that I know. I'm like, here I come. I've been preparing for this. This is what I've been working so hard for. Right. I don't want it to happen, but the problem's never the problem. It's like, nothing really changes. I do believe there's a specific strategy that every business should be focused heavily on now. But the problem is never the problem. It's not new. And I think I was once taught that the worst number in business is 1. So whether that's one stream of revenue, whether that's one stream of new patients, etc. All that's happened is essentially we've either had a revenue or multiple. If we had multiple revenues, we should be okay. If we had multiple new patient strategies, we should be okay. If we had multiple businesses, we should be okay. That's when you have, for instance, just rely on referrals. Now it's going to be a tough time for you.
Yes. And this time, like you said, the problem's never the problem. This is going to expose the holes in your business. And you can look at this as a curse, or you can look at this as a blessing for growth. It might suck in the process, but you'll be better for it if you actually work at it.
Yeah, for sure. And my support groups and my coaches and my inner circle that I'm a part of have all gone, there's sometimes a crisis is the universe's way of forcing change where maybe you didn't want to change. Yeah. And one of those might be a skill set that you have to develop now. And if you heed that advice and just embrace it and go for it, you will definitely come out of this stronger.
All right. So I'm going to bring it back to the question, because I know you have multiple ways of connecting with your target market that you've been doing all along.
Yes.
So if you had to pick a couple techniques to make sure folks are doing right now during this time frame, how should they be connecting with their target market right now?
Let me start this by giving you a bit of context with a story. And the story is that there's a famous marketing group that I've been a part of for many years and followed a guy by the name of Dan Kennedy. And Dan has always told the story about a dentist that traveled around America. He made $1 million a year, and he was a traveling dentist. And all he did was travel to a new state or town, and he would phone up the local dentist, and he would say, listen, I'm new in town. All I want is, let me do you a favor. I'll take all those old files off your hand. All those patients is there anything you want to get rid of? Like, can I help you with that? Are there any patients you don't see anymore inactive? Like, haven't been to see you for years. And all he did was basically collect other people's junk, and made $1 million a year from it, right?
Yeah.
Now, the reason I'm telling that story first is that now more than ever is a time to realize that you have to really batten down the hatches and go deep with what you've already got.
Okay.
And that is your client base. So right now, and I'll break it down for you in a moment, but I think we're entering a phase where the concept of, and if you're listening to this, please write this down, reverse customer loyalty is going to be the thing that gets us through. Meaning, we always talk about customer loyalty. That's like what they're doing for us. But like, it's time to switch hard.
Okay, so we're talking about reverse the script on customer loyalty.
So now it's reverse customer loyalty. What are we doing to show our extreme loyalty for them being so loyal to us? Which, in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And I will give you a suggestion for that in a moment. But go deep now. Go hard with your current client base. And you want to be now. Wherever you listen to this from in the world, you're in different phases of the coronavirus thing. If you listen to this from Italy, you're shut down. You're done. No commerce. If you listen to this from Spain, you're not allowed even to walk outside your house unless you're walking a dog. Literally, in here in the United Kingdom, we're at the phase of we suggest you don't go out, but it's not martial law yet. Okay. So you're listening to this from different phases, but certainly whatever phase you're in, you either should have done this already or should be doing this, and you should be collecting data and getting lists together. And I'll go through it in a moment for you, but you want to be asking yourself the question of, for instance, 80-20 rule. In business, 80% of our revenue comes from 20% of our clients.
Yeah.
Pareto's principle. And everyone talks about, yes, they kind of know it, but when I've analyzed $10 million worth of revenue in my business, and it was literally 80-20. It was like 80%, $8 million came from 20%, even less sometimes.
But I've even got to say, like most doctors, chiros, MDs, PTs even, they don't really look at their numbers. They're more clinical. They're not really business folks, which is why we have this podcast. So they don't even know what those numbers actually are.
And forgive me, actually, you've brought up a good point, is that I'm probably, and I'm going to do it on this because we're jumping straight to the solution without the problem's never the problem. If you don't know your number, if you haven't at least, you can still save it now. But yes, absolutely. Like for instance, I was getting updates on one of my numbers twice a day, and that was my future visit stat to my business during this crisis. I want to know, are people stopping to book ahead of time, etc. And we're getting updates twice a day. Mm-hmm. So I can then react appropriately when I'm getting data all the time. And if you even look at how a lot of marketing strategies come off the back of how the US elections were won. And if you look at how Obama won the US election, or even Kennedy won the US election, it was like TV for the first time, and that's straight. If you look at how Obama won, it was kind of bringing the message to the people and the conversation to people, almost social media for the first time. If you look at how Trump won it, whether it's right or wrong is irrelevant right now for this conversation, but it wasn't social media that won for Trump, it was data. He got so many data points in everyone, so he was just able to have such a specific message, and that's what you're going to be thinking about now for your client base.
Yes.
So what I mean by that is, people send an email to the whole database and they wonder why they don't get great responses, because the message to someone who's been a long-standing patient of yours for 6 years and brought all their children in, etc., is a very different message to someone who's only been with you for a week.
Right.
Now you have to be making specific message to market matches. And I'll tell you what I suggest a few lists are for you. But number one, I'd be starting with your high spenders or most loyal patients or people who've been with you the longest. Get that list and whatever that definition is for you. So you want to be looking at right now who your high spenders are, and then come up with a specific campaign for them that matches them, and the media for that. For instance, you may have a text and email for most of the database, but for your high spenders who surely deserve it, they've been so loyal to you, and this is about coming with reverse customer loyalty. Why aren't we sending them a hamper in the post? Why aren't we going a bit deeper? Why aren't we sending them a gift? They totally deserve it. Is it worth spending, $2, $3, $4, or even up to $20 on someone that's been spent thousands of dollars with you? Of course it is. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't do that for the entire database. Okay. So I'll go through the list with you now, but I'll stop there a little bit. But right now, you have to be going deep with your database because you've got gold right under your nose.
Yes, it is already there. You don't have to have a invent something new. But with these lists, this is also something that you can do. This is something your staff can do from home if you're already virtual with which we should be electronic. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but get the data now and decide who you're going to market to. And I've got some suggestions for you in a moment. But so far, and you have to forgive me. Sometimes I'll go to because I'm so in it. So you guys all know, I'm not just a coach or mentor. I run 8 practices. So I jumped on this prior. I've had meetings. I've had probably 4 hours of meetings. I've just jumped off another podcast with 100 people now live, a small private group, etc. We're teaching this stuff all the time, and we're doing it in our practices. So it's working already. But that's what I'd be suggesting. Get the lists together and start thinking about your different campaigns you're going to do to high spenders active, high spenders inactive.
Okay.
That's a different message. You've got people who are currently in the diary. What are you going to do for them? You've got people who have spent a lot of money with you who are not in the diary and haven't been to see you for 3 months. What are you doing for them? You've got people that referred to you before. Referrals are generally referrals. So maybe that's a different message. Then you've got people who are maybe inactive but haven't necessarily committed to care. It's a different messaging altogether. So that's just where I would start.
Awesome. That's brilliant. All right. So that's great to connect with your target market, collecting data and sending very targeted messages specific to those lists that you've got.
Yes.
Did you want to run down those lists?
Yeah, cool. So a couple examples for you I've got, and play with these as you see fit. Mm-hmm. So number one is let's look at our current depending where you listen to this in the world, this might be out of your hands already. But you've got current patients or clients. So right now you've got current active. They're in the diary. Maybe you're getting forced to close this week. What are you going to do for those people? My suggestion is this phase, if you haven't been forced to close yet, the only thing you should be focusing on is reducing loss of momentum. Yes. Because what will happen is if we force to close, people will come back. Life will come back to normal, but you're going to stop routines from happening. If you went the same route to buy your Starbucks coffee every morning, that you're going to be out of routine for a while, and etc. So you may not do that for the first month back to normality, etc. So you want to do everything in your power to install decrease loss of momentum. If you're currently operating still, the way you do that is you should absolutely be now booking as far ahead of time as possible. Why? Because this is what you want to be able to do. When someone phones and cancels, let's assume that's going to happen. You want to be able to just say, it's all good. You're already booked up for the next. And that's an easy conversation to have. Yes. So that's people currently in the diary. And the reason I'm saying that is there are people listening to this who are very disciplined with booking ahead of time, but there are people that listen to this that have never booked ahead of time.
Right.
Now you want to
And for those of you that are not in the UK, when he says diary, he's talking about your schedule.
Your schedule.
Just so people are all on the same page. I love it.
Yeah, you want to make sure you look at that schedule way ahead of time now, more than ever, and go, what I call a future visit stat. How many people as a percentage, let's say you saw whatever amount of people this week, what as a percentage, how many of those are booked in the diary a month from now, 2 months from now? And the higher that percentage, the better place you're going to be because they're already in the diary. Yeah. So that's, I've got a good friend of mine practices down the road, and like nobody doesn't book for, 3, 6 a month a year. That's just how he runs his practice for years. So he's sitting here going, well, it's not such a big deal for me. Everyone's booked ahead for months.
Exactly.
So that's number one. So current patients in the diary right now, what are you doing for them now to prepare for the eventuality? And that's booking ahead of time.
Yes.
Then if you are going to, let's say we shut, you got current patients, meaning they've been active in the last 3 months by definition, in this definition, but they've got no future appointments booked. Mm-hmm. So they're pretty hot. They've been in the diary, in the schedule. And now you're going to go, okay, so what am I doing right now to reactivate them now quickly while it's still not too serious, if you will, and kind of go and emulate that future visits that you've never done with them before, maybe, but now you've got to be doing that now before you close.
Okay.
So that's another list.
Yes.
Then let's go straight to our inactive list. So now inactive, by definition, is going to be different in every practice, but you may say that for you, definition of inactive is hasn't been in the practice for 3 months, potentially, and you just come with your own definition, and going back 2-3 years, and that's inactive, let's say. But now you're going to go further, and you've got inactive high spends, which we spoke about. We've got inactive high spends. And what are you going to do for them? These are potentially your top 5% that are responsible for 70%, just about. What are you going to do for them? And like, you come up with a campaign for those people and go, okay, cool. They're going to get X amount of emails. This is the offer we're going to give. We're going to throw the kitchen sink of them because they're proven buyers. They love our product. They've already spent X amount. What are we going to do for those people? Then you've got inactives, kind of the rest. Oh, it's actually 3. You've got inactives that have maybe don't classify as a prospect. They actually used your service and they've paid you money before. Okay. And they've come through, and they're not quite high spenders. So you've got that list, which will probably be your biggest list that you may not be able to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in print or etc. So then you got to decide at a campaign that's appropriate for them. Maybe you don't have a direct mail piece in that because it's going to cost you quite a bit. You really want to focus on those top spenders.
Yes.
For instance, for your top spenders, you may have a telephone call for every single one of them. You may have a personal text for every single one of them, and you may be sending them a gift in the post. So that's the media is going to change. And then the last group is, which I wouldn't focus too much on right now, is your kind of prospects. They booked an appointment. They never really came back. That's another list altogether. But I want to separate those because I don't want to making crazy cool offers to those people because they clearly they weren't engaged at that point. But even separating from that list, because we're a mom and pop industry, and the biggest challenge we have is capacity. Meaning, if you only got one front desk or CA person, etc., you've got to really make sure that your bang for your buck is at its highest. If you've only got the capacity to make 200 phone calls, you better make sure those are the 200 highest spenders. Exactly. So that's based in a nutshell, those categories that I would be at least have those lists. And then within those lists, for instance, we're going to eliminate anyone under 25 because I don't want to be, I would always be nervous that it's weird to mark, unless you've got your clean data in there and marking to the parent. I don't want to be sending a 15-year-old, a marketing message, and it's weird.
Right. Yes.
but I would eliminate that out, and make other eliminations just to help you with that. And then you have a specific message to that market, and the media changes in that. Is it just a text? Is it just an email? Is it phone call, email, text, and post? And it's going to be different for each market. So that's where I won't go too much deeper than that. But I think if all someone did from this podcast is go, wow, just the understanding, the first part to change is awareness. Just the awareness of going, oh, wow, actually, this class goes a lot deeper than what I even thought was possible.
Right.
And you just did one of those, you're gonna win.
I agree 100%. And now's the time to do it. A lot of times we get so wrapped up of working in our business, we forget to work on our business. And with the time slowing down a little bit for you, there really is no excuse. It's either reasons or excuses, right?
I love it. And, good times flatter the good times really flatter the average.
Yeah.
Rising tides like raises all ships, right? So when the economy is booming, where there's disposable income, etc., I always say we get to cheat a little bit and be pretty inefficient at times and make okay money.
Right.
But now is when inefficiency will be punished in a way of, revenue.
I love your analogies. Now, another thing we talk about on this podcast is exposure. We typically talk about it from a standpoint of how do we become known and become a local celebrity in our community. And during these times, it's going to be different, but we don't have to lose that because we still have an obligation to be leaders in our community. And I see it actually as an opportunity to step up and lead, like you mentioned in the very beginning. How are you and your offices still increasing the exposure and still becoming known, even if new patient generation isn't the priority, but maintaining calmness and maintaining stability within the community?
It's such a great point. It's such a great point, Hollen. And I think it's interesting. I think it's in Think and Grow Rich. He talks about every adversity carries within it a seed of equal and opposite opportunity.
Yes.
And if you look what's happened in the marketplace with Facebook ads, for instance, so talking about exposure, immediately so many people have pulled their ad spends, and now it's kind of potentially going back to how it used to be, you can get views for even cheaper.
Right. Yeah.
And like now that people that still stick to their guns, that still, don't retract and still stay abundant and big right now while everyone's retracting.
Yeah.
It's like Warren Buffett says, when everyone's spending or something along the lines, when everyone's spending, it's time to be a little bit thrifty, and when everyone's not spending, it's time to be greedy.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, from a perspective of now's the time to invest in that, because most people aren't, which means it's a bit cheaper for you. But my number one tip, and in my whole inner circle group have really embraced this, is especially right now, the thing that stops us from putting exposure out there and serving our communities is often self-imposed fears from judgments, especially from our peers, right?
Yes,
so we're like,
stories around the reality.
We're petrified what other people think of us, specifically the doc down the road, by the way. Petrified. And I would first say you've got to squash that little voice, first of all, because no matter what you say, by the way, no matter what you say, someone's not going to like it. You could just look at the camera and say hello sweetly. And someone, a good friend of mine who's massive online, a huge influence online, he says, you could save an older lady from a burning building, and somebody would still comment on, and it'd be caught on camera, and someone would still comment on the video and say you did something wrong.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So first of all, squash that little voice, no matter what you do, first of all. And then the next part of that is right now, and this is going to be weird for people to hear. It's even difficult for me to say sometimes. Quantity over quality.
Quantity
over quality, meaning
that's strange to say in here.
Yeah, most people
elaborate on that.
Yeah, so most people go in society, we taught quality over quantity in a way, like the video is going to be perfect before you put it out. Mm-hmm. The text has to be perfect before you put it out. The emails has to be perfect. And
I was thinking more along like the services we do, we need to have quality, right?
No, more about the message online.
Yeah, from the marketing, from the messaging, do it, right? Done is better than perfect.
Yeah, so quantity over quality right now, meaning no, you don't have to have a perfect studio. No, you don't have to, look perfect. If you're out with your family, you like exercising and that's a moment to show that, do it then. So quantity, especially right now, because that's how people will gain more affinity to you right now in these times where they're desperately looking for a leader to find out about health, to find out about whatever. And whether it's free exercise classes online, free health classes online, free cooking classes online, healthy cooking, free whatever you can do to your community to create, be a leader. It's definitely, as I even get mixed up when I say it, quantity over quality, just message to be a leader, and you will create that hub of being a leader.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what is your strategy on the content? But you gave us some examples, and it's really about giving back and lifestyle and showing your lifestyle during these times and really kind of giving a sense of calmness and a perspective of positivity during these times as well as a leader. What is the strategy behind the messaging, and just in regular posting, but also in the Facebook ads?
Okay, so I think right now you want to turn off your kind of lead generations, not turn off, but just again, it comes back to the first thing. You want to be watching your numbers. So for instance, one of our great strategies within our practices is to drive people to an educational talk, if you will, a dinner with the doc.
Right.
And we do that very successfully and attribute millions of dollars worth of turnover to those type of events. But now where we can't have gatherings, you want to, straight away, they want to be turning things like that off. And I think that probably now is the best time. The best strategy I can give is you want to be changing your Facebook ads to, views objective and reach. Mm-hmm. And that would be the strategy from that. And then from the content, Hollen, we're in the game too. We're learning, as we go when it comes to this game and content, and are continuously reminded, much to my dismay, is that how people are way more interested in your life than you may think.
That's so true. Even if you think you are not interesting.
So you think like, why would anyone be interested in the fact that I'm walking my dog now and in this funny park, and like people will be very interested in, like some people won't, but like that's, I think right now, trying to, take down those barriers and put it out there. And I'll tell you a really interesting story I heard from Will Smith recently.
Okay.
And Will Smith, someone said to Will, why are you doing all these videos? I've seen Will Smith online now. He's doing all the motivational videos. He's doing videos when he's in gym, etc. He said, why are you doing all these videos, And he said, the times have changed. In the old days, as a movie star, you wanted to create an air of mystery, and you had to pull a little bit away from society so that people paid to come watch the movie or the cinema. Now, he says, times have changed completely. Now, if you don't do the video all the time, no one's coming to watch the movie.
Yes.
And it's changed. It's like, no, you pulled away. Now people want you to pay to go watch. Now, if you pull away, no one's coming to watch the movie. You need to be kind of omnipresent, if you will. And only if you're omnipresent are people coming to watch the video. And that was from Will Smith.
Yeah.
So I remember that state when he said that, I was like, wow, that is a powerful statement. And I get it.
I love that perspective. Yeah.
If he's not doing the videos of him and his dog and the thing in the gym and whatever, no one's coming to watch the sci-fi form is put out, And it's the same with your practice. Right. It's opposite to what you may think. If you're not now doing hey, this is what we do. This is what we do in my family to stay healthy. This is what we believe in. And this is how we, my whole family gets adjusted or under care or whatever. That's what people are going to relate to now.
Absolutely. I love that. Now I'm going to flip the script a little bit. Now, earlier in this podcast, you had mentioned as far as like staying grounded during these times and creating some consistency, you pray with your family. Mm-hmm. And I don't know a whole lot about your spiritual life, but because you said that, I want to ask you, how has your spiritual life played a role in actual business?
I think from a business standpoint, life standpoint, I was once taught that the definition of fear is lacking in faith in some way, shape, or form. And when you have, like any person going through business and life challenges and family challenges, and we're all broken human beings in a way, that for me, that we all have to rely on something bigger than ourselves to get through. And it's when you continually relying on your own strength that it becomes exhausting. Mm-hmm. But when you're in surrendering to whatever you believe in, for instance, for me, it's Jesus Christ, and I have my moments of high certainty and less certainty, like any human being. But it's when in our surrender that we actually get more strength, when we realize we can't handle it all by ourselves.
Right. And whenever we meet that point, that's the point if we allow it for God to step in and do the impossible, right?
Yeah, because it's just too hard, but it's just too hard by ourselves, right?
Yes.
It's too hard. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like I've got it all together. Like, I certainly don't have it all together. I just need, maybe I just need it more than other people, but I'm cool with that. So it's in your weakness that there's strength,
Yes, that's awesome. All right. So now we're going to enter the fire rapid round. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So in hindsight that you've been very successful in business for quite some time, what should be the 2 top areas to focus in practice and in business?
I think number 1 in practice and business, number 1 is grow yourself. Invest in yourself. You're still the biggest asset. Like, no marketing campaign, nothing can ever bring you the return on investment of investing in yourself. Number 1. Okay. Secondly, I was once taught that he can bring new customers through the front door owns the keys to the castle. And marketing will cover up any business mistake short term. Mm-hmm. And when you need a short-term win, I love the fact that I'm a geek when it comes to marketing. So those are 2 things that number 1, yourself, like without a doubt, go deeper now. Everyone else is going to be not spending money on investing and coaching in themselves. Go deeper.
Yes. Invest
more, learn more, get more coaches, do whatever you have to do. And then number 2 is I truly believe that the person that can get new customers in any business, that skill set, you still own the keys to the castle. So those two.
Awesome. What is the best advice that you have ever received?
I'd say it would be make as many mistakes as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Number one. And always assume you know nothing. And then normally the decision that comes from that is, okay, well, let's just do it and see. And then you go like, oh, that sucked. Okay, let's try it like this. So assume you know nothing and then make as many mistakes as quickly as possible.
I love that. In order to do that, you've got to throw your ego out the window.
Oh, absolutely, Hollen. Absolutely. Yeah. Richard Branson said, to be an entrepreneur, business person, you've got to be prepared to have a lot of egg on your face.
That's true. All right. What is one thing that you see consistently in every successful business owner?
Just the first thing that comes to mind is similar to the first question you asked was like, what's the most important thing is that they all invest in themselves in some way, shape or form.
Okay.
They just do. They trust themselves less in that they understand they need the support.
Right.
They need the help. They need the coaching. They need the mentoring. They need that. They understand they need discipleship. So it's that. It's just that understanding that, hey, let's invest, let's grow. Whether it's teams, people, etc. They're not afraid to invest in people growing and including themselves.
Yes. All right. Last question. What is one of the best resources for business that has helped you that you would recommend for our listeners today?
I'm an avid reader. So I read as many books as possible, but I would probably say the person's content that I have consumed the most is Dan Kennedy.
Yes, you've referenced him a lot, and I've read a lot of his books. They implemented most of it.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, like he is him and Jay Abraham and people like that work in so many industries, which is actually their power. But I'd probably say, I actually think about it the other day. I was like, I've got his newsletter monthly for years, and I've been in his mastermind groups, and I go to America many times a year to spend time with him. So I've probably consumed more of his content than any other, coach, mentor, or whatever in the world.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for all of that, and thank you so much for your time and your knowledge. I appreciate you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me on this, and thank you for giving people an opportunity to grow and learn, specifically in these times. So thank you for being a leader and helping us all be leaders. So thank you so much.
You bet. So I know before you go, I know there's folks listening in that are saying, I've got to get a hold of this guy. I need to start following this guy. How can they connect with you?
So I probably would say, I have a very active YouTube channel. So go to YouTube and subscribe to my channel, Ryan Rieder, and I just give a ton of free stuff on that. Awesome. And then if you I've got a website called the dcpracticegrowth.com. And just on that, I'd say, there's a free book on there. Go online and you can get a free book and you just pay for the shipping, etc. And actually, at the moment, I was telling you before the call, with everything going on right now, I really believe it's the most important time for people to have that knowledge of that book. It's called New Patient Avalanche, and how to create that in your practice. And I'm actually, for the first time ever, giving that away as just a free download when you buy the book, so you can just get going straight away. So just check those out online. But definitely, I say the easiest way is my YouTube channel, Ryan Rieder. That's RIEDER, and subscribe, and then you'll get. For instance, I'm going to be teaching everyone the exact strategies that we're going to be implementing in our practices verbatim. So you want to be part of that, at least subscribe to that.
For free. That's incredible. Thank you so much.
You're
and
welcome.
I'll be sure to post those links in the show notes as well so that y'all can get to that very easily. So thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. And for those of you listening in, I hope you took notes. If you didn't, go back and listen to this again, because there are some gems in here that can explode your practice in these tough times and help you not just survive, but actually thrive. And if you wrote something down, and I want to encourage you to at least implement it. That's the kicker, right? That's the difference. Implement it and share this episode with your colleagues and your friends, all right? Thank you so much for listening in, and stay classy, folks.